Welcome back, minors. It's time for your morning cup of joe. My name is Tracy, and I'm a counselor here at Student Wellbeing.
Hi, and my name's Amber Johnston. I'm also a counselor here at Student Wellbeing. And today I wanted to talk about how mental health struggles like depression can make us feel really isolated. We can feel like we see the world in a way that other people don't, and it feels like everything around us is upside down.
I can relate to that, Amber. I know a lot of people, when they go through depression, get very isolated, and they are very alone. And so I understand what you're saying there. I really, relate to that. We see students who come into the student well-being that are dealing with depression symptoms.
Right.
So I appreciate you bringing that topic to the table today for discussion.
Well, I think it's really important, and I want to use the metaphor for depression of the TV show Stranger Things. Are you familiar with Stranger Things?
I am. It's a great example today. My husband's a binge watcher.
It's such a good show, and for those of you listening, I'm not going to spoil anything to do with the latest seasons. The most we're going to talk about today is season 1 and a little bit of season 2, so we won't get into anything in season 3 or 4.
Thanks for not spoiling it for those people who watch.
So primarily, like I said, we're just going to talk about this first 2 seasons, and mostly the concept of the upside down is primarily where we're going to focus today. So for those of you who've not got a chance to see it, Stranger Things is a show about 4 boys that are really close friends, when one of them, Will, disappears on his way home one night after a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And through the entirety of season 1, Will is missing, and he's been transported into this alternate dimension called the Upside Down. And the Upside Down is a world that's identical to our world. It looks just like it, except for it's a dark version. Everything, all the colors are muted. Everything is kind of dilapidated and falling down and rusty and broken, and all the people are gone, and it's just dark.
Sounds like an awful place to be.
Right, and it's cold, really cold, and that's kind of what depression feels like.
Yeah, pretty uncomfortable place to be.
Right. I like to say with depression when I talk to clients about it, that it's like all the colors been pulled out of the world, and when you look at the upside down, everything's kind of shot through a blue lens, and so everything is just this very monochromatic, very, very dark, very blue, very just empty of color.
I have a lot of my clients in the past will just say, I feel numb, and I just feel like I don't have emotion. And so like when you're talking about the upside down world and saying that it's just a dark and cold place, I've had clients in the past who've just said that they just feel like you're like what you're saying, it's just very dark and cold there. So that's an interesting way, I guess, that the writer had put this series together just to bring that demonstration there. So I can see that because it really relates to the feelings of depression. It's kind of nice how you're bringing this to the table, so we can really see how that relates to depression.
Well, and what's really interesting is while Will is in the upside down, and he's been taken away from his family, and he's existing over there, you see him trying to communicate with people that are in the quote real world. And so he uses lights, which then we have the iconic scene of the Christmas lights in the wall, and him using them kind of like a Ouija board to communicate with his mother. And so it's kind of like when we have depression and we're trying to communicate our feelings with our family, it can feel like we're in different worlds and like they don't completely understand what we're trying to say. And so when you've got Joyce, which is Will's mom, for those of you who are unaware, trying to communicate with Will, she is there trying her best to try to understand, which is that's the epitome of a supportive family member right there, or a supportive whoever support system that individual has. And that's what we really want, is having somebody who tries to understand that. But when we're in that upside down kind of state, it can feel like we can't communicate, like we're not speaking the same language, or we can't get the words out.
Yeah, we're just lost at that given moment in time, and people aren't hearing what we're saying.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
And it's scary, and it's a very isolating place to be. Mm-hmm. And Will really survives through this experience by going to a safe place of his. He goes to to his little playhouse in the backyard. Yes. And that's how he survives, is he goes in here in this place where he's got these happy memories, and he just holes up into this little playhouse. And when we have depression, isn't that essentially what we do too?
Yeah, so having that, being in depression, going and finding that safe place, that's like the ultimate, because we're comfortable there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm envisioning that playhouse right now. Did you have a playhouse?
Do I?
Did you ever have a playhouse?
No, I never had a playhouse.
I have so many good memories of playhouses.
But I built forts inside my room and stuff, when I was a kid. And so when we think about it, how often when we have depressive feelings do we burrow into our covers on our bed and we don't want to get up, right, and we don't want to get out of bed? Well, in that function, how different is your bed from Will's playhouse at that point?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And in order to find him at the end of season 1, to rescue him, where did they have to go? They went to the playhouse. They came to him, they came to his safe place, and they helped get him out. And so when we have depression, we often do that. We find that place that we feel safe, and then we don't want to leave it. So it could be our bed, it could be a favorite couch, it could be inside of a Snuggie sitting in the in the corner. Whatever that safe place is, it's where we feel comfort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Knowing where our safe place is an important thing. But I think it's also important too, is if we have family members, we have support people, it's also communicating with people, what is your safe place? Because if it's just being in a blanket, wrapped up, sitting in front of, in your bed, or whether it is that fort that you built, or, whether it's maybe just sitting out on a porch swing, or, what it is, I think it's communicating to people, because depression can lead us to that upside down world, like you said, for Will, but maybe it's such a drastic place that you've gone to, where you want to escape, and you get to that place where you go so far away that someone can't find you like they couldn't Will. Right. And so when depression leads you down that dark road, if you get away and people can't find you, we all have heard this, and what was Will's mom's name?
Joyce.
What would have happened if Joyce, she was able to communicate with him finally? Mm-hmm. But it's that place, what if it was you or me, and our coworkers didn't know where we were? We would want them to know where we are, Right. And so it's just like anyone who's listening to this right now, if they went to their safe place, your mom and dad, or your brother and sister, or your loved one, communicating what your safety plan is. Where's your safe place? I think that's important for us to communicate to people when we get into episodes of depression. So
it's communicating what our needs are, the fact that we're feeling the way that we're feeling, and reaching out, because when we go into the beginning of season 2, after Will comes back, even though he's been removed from the upside down and everybody thinks everything should be all better, with depression it's not always that simple. We get out of these depressive symptoms, and then it feels like we can be sucked back in, and so we'll have times where we're doing great, and we're able to go out and we can do the things, and we can go to the parties, and we can have fun and meet people and laugh, and then the next day we wake up and we can't get out of bed. Mm-hmm. And that's normal for depression, but it's not something we have to live in.
Right.
Like it's a finding a way to communicate the way we feel. And so when we see Will going through this, and the best example for this is in the beginning of season 2, when Will is having these flashbacks to being in the Upside Down. And so he'd be walking along, and then all of a sudden he's just transported back to the Upside Down, and he doesn't know how to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And so he tries to communicate to his mother and other people around him that this is happening, and they keep telling him what? It's all in his head. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at that, and that them saying that, how often do people say that to individuals that have depression?
Mm-hmm. I've heard it so frequently.
Right.
I've heard it from the smallest of children to the oldest of adults, mm-hmm. that depression's just in your head, and it's actual chemical imbalance.
Yes.
You hear chemical balance.
Why have you tried being happy? Mm-hmm. Have you that whole power of positive thinking and all that stuff. But in Stranger Things, we really see that wasn't accurate, mm-hmm. because they told him that it was in his head, and then and Bob, who was his, I guess, stepfather, like not really, it was the guy that was dating his mom, tells him to confront it, and so he does, because he's got it in his, like they've told him it's all in his head, and then he goes and he confronts it, and then it consumes him. Mm-hmm. And so the lesson here is that it's not in your head, that that he needed help, he needed assistance. And so seeking the assistance from the right people and finding the right sources. And so for anybody out there who's struggling with these feelings of feeling like everything's lost its color and everything's cold, and feeling like you don't want to get out of bed, and feeling like you're not motivated to do anything, feeling lost and incapacitated and anxious, and the world is full of monsters. Like, if you've got that feeling, it's finding the people that can help you get out of it, and being able to communicate to them and tell them, I need help.
I've always asked any of my patients I've worked with, clients I've worked with, if you had a severe cold, mm-hmm. and you felt really, really sick and you had a fever, what would you do? Amber, what would you do?
If I had a sick cold, probably burrow up in a blanket and take some cough medicine.
And if you had a fever and your fever wasn't going down, what would you do?
If my fever went down?
No, it wouldn't go down.
Call the doctor.
Call the doctor. And right. So why is it when people get really, really withdrawn, having these feelings of darkness, why do they not seek help?
Well, I think there's a lot of stigma.
You're right.
Like this idea that if the one I hear the most is that I should be able to handle this. I should be able to get through this. Mm-hmm. And it's this idea that we can white knuckle our way through mental health problems, mm-hmm. and it's not accurate. Like, why do we treat depression any differently than we do, say, diabetes,
mm-hmm. or that cold?
Or a cold, or a broken arm.
Right.
Like, if I've got a broken arm, like, I'm not going to be able to just white knuckle my way through it. Right. I'm going to have to see a doctor that's going to have to, that's right. going to help me. And mental health is no different than that. Exactly. And so there's no shame in calling some, a mental health professional and saying, look, I feel lost and stuck. I need help.
Right. The research that I've done and all of my studies, depression is one of the most treatable mm-hmm. mental health illnesses.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the fallacies that we've had. And unfortunately, if you have watched TV and you've read some of the things that have been from the 70s and 80s, there's been mistreatment of right. people in the past. And so I like the movie that you picked, that was Stranger Things, because, if you look at Will, he did come out of the darkness.
Yes.
And I think that's the great piece that we can see here, even though he wasn't depressed. But what we see here is, so he was in the upside down world, but he came out of that. So it's a true picture of just how depression is.
Right.
People can come out of depression, and that's that metaphor you put forward. And I think that's so wonderful, because people do come out of depression,
right?
And so, and there's different levels of depression, obviously, but I think when people seek treatment, that's the important piece. And so, and admitting that you need help, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
No, there's absolutely nothing wrong, and there's a multitude of ways that we can treat somebody that is showing symptoms of depression. So there is obviously talk therapy, because sometimes it is a result of the things that we're going through, and that's typically referred to as situational depression, and that happens when we're going through hard things in our life, and we start feeling dark and blue because of it. And then we go into places like major depressive disorder, which is a more chronic level of long-term depression. And in those cases, sometimes it requires a little bit of medication in order to get through it if we have an imbalance in our neurotransmitters. And so, and that's really a conversation for you and your healthcare professional. But at least talking to somebody to get an idea of some tactics. There are non-medication ways that we can try to affect that through different types of therapy. There's different kinds of mindfulness techniques. And the basic part of it is that you don't have to exist in this state, that there is a way out. We just have to be able to connect you with the right people.
I think that's important, that, some people don't even realize that you can have a medical procedure done, and after that medical procedure, you can have depressive symptoms. So,
absolutely.
People can have a broken leg, and after the broken leg, you can, because you've had to sit more longer, and having a lack of activity can cause depressive symptoms. And I don't know, we didn't quite touch on this, but seasonal affective disorder.
Yes.
Just when there's lack of sun outside, and our body's not getting as much sunlight. Some people's families are more prone to, seasonal affective disorder. So if you find, from when there's less light outside, just through the months of, December, January, you're feeling more depressed, sometimes people get what's called seasonal affective disorder,
right.
And that's part of depression. Women who are on this podcast, some women get what's called postpartum depression after they've had a baby, and that's completely treatable, nothing to be ashamed of, and definitely encouraged, to get treatment.
It can also be connected to your menstrual cycle too.
Yes,
there is a type of depression that can be greatly affected by the hormones that are produced during, and the lack of hormones during the menstrual cycle, and the surges of hormones between. And so what it causes is that their depression ebbs and flows with their cycle, and they have to, that the treatment for that is a little bit different, and that's usually diagnosed in combination with a therapist and a doctor.
Right.
So there's tons of types of depression, and the treatments for them are very varied. There's also, for those of you that this is your last semester of college, it is very common for people post-graduation to go into depressive states. Like, that is extremely common. So it's keeping an eye out, knowing that I'm going to have surgery, that I may experience depression after surgery, knowing that I'm going through a major life event and I may experience that post-excitement letdown that leads into depressive symptoms.
Right. And the other place to stay really, aware of is if you lose someone, and, this could be losing a pet, losing a loved one who's close to you, losing a friend, losing someone who was long distance from you, or even losing, and this is how we'll think about this. So think about if you really admire someone who is you're a sports fan, or somebody who's a singer. Maybe you've just always been a lifetime fan of that person. Those things can affect you. And so, just be kind to yourself. Recognize that you're feeling different. So recognize those symptoms that we're talking about today.
Right. And those symptoms, again, are feelings of feeling isolated. It's feeling unable to connect with other people, lack of motivation. It's feeling like the world's lost its color. It feels like lack of interest in the things we typically love. It just stuck, lost.
Right. You might have a change in your eating pattern, sleeping pattern. You might notice that you're more irritable.
Right.
You might have difficulty concentrating.
Right.
So these are all symptoms that people experience when they're having a change, with their mood, but it's more symptoms of depression.
So when you are ready, help is out there. You can call and make an appointment with us, or you can you can either email us, or there's a online booking option for new clients. And if it's a crisis and you feel like you're in danger of harming yourself through either self-harm or attempting to end your life or commit suicide, please call 911 or Campus Police, and the phone number for that's 573-341-4300. And you can also go to the hospital or the crisis access point in the basement of Compass. Those are really, if you're feeling like you want to harm yourself, those are your first places. The most important thing is keeping you safe.
Right. And we would encourage, our staff here at the Student Wellbeing Office, we want you to know that we are here to help you. Any of the crisis access lines are going to be there to talk to you, to reach out to you. And so if you're feeling like you're in crisis, just know on the other end of that line, there's going to be someone to help you.
Right.
And so that's critically important for you. Amber, Amber's here. I'm here again. My name's Tracy. But anybody that you contact here at our office, we're going to help you find those resources. Just reach out to us, reach out to the other resources that are available.
Right. And if it's after hours and we're not here, like I said, the hospital, crisis access point, Campus Police, those are fantastic resources. There's also, you can, if you're in crisis and you want to talk to somebody but you prefer to text, you can use the crisis text line, and you can text HOME to 741-741. And the crisis text line is a global non-for-profit organization that provides free crisis intervention via text message. The organization services are available 24 hours a day, every day through the U.S. by texting 741-741. So it doesn't even matter where you're at, as long as you're in the United States. Text that number, and you can have a text conversation with a crisis worker right then.
Right. And the one thing that I always encourage students, our services are confidential, and so when you come and you talk to us here at the Student Wellbeing Office, our services are confidential. We're not gonna, go talk to your professor. We're not gonna go talk to your mom and dad. That's not gonna happen. And the only time that we would ever speak to anyone in regards to what's happening with you is if you are suicidal, if you're homicidal, or if some sort of legal proceedings were happening. But typically you're going to know about that before we do. Right. But in the same sense too, if you call a crisis line and you call 911, of course they're going to send you help. But if you call if you text the home, or you call a crisis line, they're also, if you tell them that you're suicidal or homicidal, with due diligence and ethically, they as well will call and get you help. But that's what we all want to do, is we want to see you safe.
Right. Well, and speaking of that, like the phone number, there's this National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is you can reach through 988. That number was just established this past summer, and that number it's kind of like calling an emergency number. It puts you immediately on the phone with somebody that's a crisis worker, to help you get through whatever you're going through. And like Tracy said, it's not immediately we're going to level 10 with everything. It's if this person who's a trained professional feels like you're honestly in danger, they're going to do their best to keep you safe. That's ultimately our goal here. Isn't to break confidentiality, it's to keep you safe.
Because many times it's not that you need to go to the hospital. You don't need that. It's just that you need to reach out and talk to somebody.
Right.
And And you're needing to feel safe within yourself. And that's that important moment that you just need somebody to listen.
Right. You can also call the Compass Health Hotline at 800-833-3915. Who can respond to your crisis 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as well. And they'll talk to you about your crisis and help you determine what further help is needed. So an example would be a telephone conversation to provide understanding and support. Maybe it's a face-to-face intervention. Maybe it's an appointment the next day with a mental health professional. Or maybe it's an alternative service that meets your needs. Maybe you're having a crisis and you need access to resources. It kind of just depends on what you need. And they can give you community resources or whatever they need with ongoing care to kind of help you afterwards. So that's, and again, it goes along with that same level of confidentiality. And you can always, like I said, as through business hours and normal operational hours, you can call Student Wellbeing and we'll get you in to see somebody as soon as we can. Additional information about it we can access on our website. You don't have to stay in the Upside Down. You don't have to stay there. It's a hard place to be. It's a very lonely place to be. And you have ways out. All you have to do is give us a call or give a call to one of our crisis numbers or text numbers or whoever. Give contact to them and we'll help you. We'll help you navigate out of it. And I know it feels like you're alone and nobody's out there, and maybe it feels like nobody cares, but depression lies to us. It's an illusion. It warps our thoughts, and there are people out there who really do care, and all you have to do is reach out. So and if you have a friend that may be feeling this way, please let somebody know. You can file a UCare report, and you can even do so anonymously if you choose to, and you just might save their life.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that. It's good to know that people do care about us. Mm-hmm. And I think that we truly do care here at the university. Everyone I've met here cares.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I know this was a episode, pretty serious episode this week, but I feel like it was really important for us to cover. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
Mm-hmm. Take care.
For more information about mental health and wellness, contact Student Wellbeing at 204 Norwood Hall. And you can also give us a call at 573-341-4211.
The song Happy Days is brought to us by music from www.free-stock-music.com. You can also add and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook using our handle at S&T Wellbeing.